بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على سيد المرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد. We're on the second chapter, we're on the second section of this book, which is regarding abstaining from disobediences. And Imam Ghazali first talks about how it's important to protect the body from disobediences, protect the body and the various limbs of the body from disobediences. So he speaks about the eye and what it's created for and what a person should abstain from doing with his eye. And likewise then the ear, what a person should be doing with the eye, what a person should not be doing with the eye, what a person should do with the ears, and what a person should not do with the ears. And then the tongue. Now in terms of the tongue is probably the worst of the things that will get us into trouble, because it has an ability to just run away from us. And Imam Ghazali spends a considerable amount of time talking about the tongue, like in Ihya Ulumuddin, where he mentions about 20 different things. He mentions about 20 different things that talks about 20 different things, or 20 different problems of the tongue. So he says here that, again, the tongue is created for a particular purpose, and if you don't use it for that purpose, it's going to act as a burden against you. And then he talks about the 8 main calamities of the tongue. Although in his Ihya Ulumuddin he mentions quite a few more, here he mentions only 8 of them, which are probably the most important. So he says, فَحْفَظْ لِسَانَكَ مِنْ ثَمَانِيَةِ أَشْيَاء الْأَوَّلُ الْكَذِبُ. So the first one he's going to talk about is falsehood or lying. The second one is breaking promises, verbally breaking promises. And third is ghiba, which he talks about quite a bit, which is backbiting. And thereafter, number 4 is arguments and quarreling. The 5th one is tazkiyatun nafs, which is to purify oneself and show that one is pure and one is blameless, and so on and so forth. And the 6th one is cursing people. The 7th is making a dua against people, giving bad duas to people. And the 8th one is joking around excessively. So he talks about that. And then he talks about the stomach after that. So we'll try to cover some of this, but this puts us into perspective what we're talking about today. So he says, فَحْفَظْ لِسَانَكَ مِنْ ثَمَانِيَةِ أَشْيَاء. Protect your tongue from 8 things. الْأَوَّلُ الْكَذِبُ. The first thing is lying or falsehood. فَحْفَظْ لِسَانَكَ مِنْهُ فِي الْجِدِّ وَالْهَزْلِ وَلَا تُعَوِّدْ نَفْسَكَ الْكَذِبَ هَزْلًا فَيَتَعَادَى إِلَى الْجِدِّ فَالْكِذْبُ مِنْ أُمَّهَاتِ الْكَبَائِرِ ثم إنك إذا عرفت بذلك سقطت الثقة بقولك وتزدريك الأعين وتحتقرك. He says, protect your tongue from lying, whether you are in a serious mode or whether you're joking. So even when you're joking, don't lie. Now obviously sometimes you say certain things. I mean, lying is absolutely wrong, unless there are some permissible places of lying where it's to protect somebody from maybe dying that will be wrongfully murdered, for example. Right? There's a few specific things that Imam Nawawi and others have mentioned. However, talking about lying, a person can't use falsehood to joke around, to make fun of others, or just to joke and make other people laugh. Because the problem with that are manifold actually. One is that you're lying at somebody else's expense or at something that did not happen. And number 2, Imam Ghazali mentions this as well, that people are not going to take you seriously. I mean, sometimes there's people who joke around, but they're very truthful in their joking. And you know, it's related from the Prophet ﷺ as well, that when he would joke, he would only tell the truth. The Sahaba said to him that you joke with us. He said, مَا أَقُولُ إِلَّا حَقًّا, that I don't say anything but the truth. which was absolutely correct. He would just relate a story or something of that nature which would be completely truthful. Now, in this case, Imam Ghazali is saying that don't lie. And there's some people, if you hear them joke around sometimes, they'll be absolutely lying. And then you don't know whether to trust them or not in the future. And that's the problem. And that's what Imam Ghazali lays out here. He says that whether you're doing it seriously or whether you're joking, do not lie. Protect your tongue from it. In fact, don't even become accustomed to doing it in a jokey fashion. Don't even become accustomed to doing it in a jokey fashion, because the problem is that it's going to probably lead to worse. فَيَتَعَادَى إِلَى الْجِدِّ, because then it will call towards doing it when you're serious as well. Because if you normally joke and it becomes so easy for you to lie when you joke, then it's going to become easy for you to lie when you're serious, because you'll just become so accustomed that the taboo is broken. That's the problem with sins. So let's take a moment on this. It's very important that if we're not committing a sin, see, there's two things. One is that a person is already committing a sin, and another person is not committing a sin, right? If a person is already committing a sin, then they need to try to wean themselves off it, and then build up enough iman and enough nur in the heart to abstain from it, right? And enough repulsion for it. When a person is not doing a particular sin, even if his heart is attracted to it, but they're not doing it, there's a taboo there. There is a taboo there, right? And that taboo is actually very helpful in a sense that once you break it, then it becomes much more difficult. The first time you do a sin, the first time you would lie, for example, then you'll feel bad initially, but you've just lightened the taboo of it. The next time it's going to become worse. And so on and so forth until it becomes second nature, and then you just become completely indulgent in the sin itself. So it's very important that don't even joke, for example, in this case, with falsehood, because if you do, then it's going to lead you to be false and to utter untruths very easily when you're serious. You know, sometimes people comment, I don't know how that person can tell the untruth. You know, he's got such a straight face and he's absolutely lying, and I'm 100% sure that he was wrong and that he knows the truth, but he's just lying so clearly. It's just a clear white lie. So it's because a person becomes so accustomed to it that doesn't even feel bad. You can't even see an expression on the face that the person is feeling bad. So a person needs to be very careful that even the seeds of this are eliminated, so that a person, it does not lead a person to more serious matters. Al-kidhbu yuhlik, as the Prophet ﷺ said, that lying destroys, وَصِدْقُ yunji, and truth it protects and it gives you safety. فَالْكِذْبُ مِنْ أُمَّهَاتِ الْكَبَائِرِ. Imam Ghazali says that lying is the mother of the big sins. ثُمَّ إِنَّكَ إِذَا عُرِفْتَ بِذَلِكَ. Again, then he takes on the psychological aspect here, is that if you become popular with lying, that if people know that you're lying, سَقَطَتِ الثِّقَةُ بِقَوْلِكَ. People will not trust your opinions or your statements anymore. Your talk, anything that you say, will not be trusted anymore. وَتَزْدَرِيكَ الْأَعْيُنُ وَتَحْتَقِرُكَ. And people's eyes will scorn you and despise you. People's eyes will scorn you and despise you because they just think you're a liar. I mean, lying, I don't think holds respect from any good person. In fact, for the majority of people, I don't think lying really holds any kind of respect. فإذا أردت أن تعرف قبح الكذب من نفسك فانظر إلى كذب غيرك وإلى نفرة نفسك عنه واستحقارك لصاحبه واستقباحك له وكذلك فافعل في جميع عيوب نفسك فإنك لا تدري قبح عيوبك من نفسك بل من غيرك فما استقبحته من غيرك فيستقبحه غيرك منك لا محالة فلا ترضى لنفسك بذلك. If you desire to know the harms of falsehood in yourself, because you can't see yourself and you'll be justifying for yourself, but if you want to see how bad it is and how bad it's going to be taken from you, then look at somebody else's falsehood and how your nafs really hates it. Like a person may become accustomed to lying themselves and it may become easy and second nature, but look at somebody else when they lie to you, how do you feel? I mean, nobody likes being lied to. I think this is something which probably everybody agrees with, that nobody likes being lied to. So consider the lying of somebody else and how you shun it and despise the man who lies and regard his communication as foul. Do the same. So he turns from this to other sins and he says, do the same with regard to all your own vices, for you do not realize the foulness of your vices from your own case, but from somebody else's case. What you hold bad in another man, others will undoubtedly hold bad in you. Do not therefore be complacent about that in yourself. الثاني, the second one here, is الخلف في الوعد. Making a promise, promising somebody to do something and then just going against it. فإياك أن تعيد بشيء إلا وتفي به بل ينبغي أن يكون إحسانك للناس فعلا بلا قول. Imam Ghazali is not spending too much time with all of these. He spends a bit more time with ghiba, but the reason is that this is supposed to be a short book that just has some quick counseling, right, that's supposed to penetrate the heart. So he just mentions a few main points. He doesn't mention many ahadith or Quranic verses. If you want that kind of information, you need to look into Imam Ghazali's Ihya Ulumuddin, where he's got whole sections, pages on each one of these, and he talks about them in detail from many different perspectives. So the second thing he's talking about is making a promise and breaking it. Resigning on your promise. فَإِيَّاكَ أَن تَعِيدَ بِشَيْءٍ إِلَّا وَتَفِيَ بِهِ. Be very careful, or completely abstain from making a promise about something and then not being able to do it. بَلْ يَنْبَغِي أَن يَكُونَ إِحْسَانُكَ لِلنَّاسِ فِعْلًا بِلَا قَوْلٍ. The good you do to people should rather be in deed without any word, which is that you should just kind of recognize what people need and then go and do it for them. So this way, if you were to, for example, fail in doing so, you haven't made a promise. What that means, for example, is that you notice that somebody needs something and he's looking for somebody to help them. Just go ahead and help them right there, or as soon as possible, without asking or without promising that I'll do it, unless you have to do it. Now, this does not mean that you should never make a promise. He's just saying that if you can, without making a promise, go and fulfill whatever that person's needs are, then that would be better, right? But if you can do it quickly, it's not like, okay, I'll do it next week, because that person needs somebody and his heart needs to be at rest, that somebody is going to help me. So if it's that kind of a situation, then obviously you go and promise them. فَإِذَا اضْطُرِرْتَ إِلَى الْوَعْدِ فَإِيَّاكَ أَن تُخْلِفَ إِلَّا لِعَجْزٍ أو ضرورة فإن ذلك من أمارات النفاق وخبائث الأخلاق. Then he's saying that if you are forced to make a promise about something, as I told you that there's certain situations that just require that you make the promise to put the other person at rest, then be very careful of going against your promise, or breaking your promise, or not fulfilling your promise, unless you've been completely unable to do so. You've been completely feeble and you've not been able to do it, or daruratin, or some other special need came up which you couldn't. Meaning you've got a serious valid excuse for yourself where you tried your best while keeping the other person's right in your mind, you still could not do it. فَإِنَّ ذَلِكَ, because if you don't abstain from breaking promises, that is actually a sign of hypocrisy, and it is from the evil character. It is from evil, mean character inside. So it's very important. Let me talk a bit more about this. What it is that if you make a promise, knowing half in your mind that I'm probably not going to be able to do it, then don't make the promise. See, there's some people who'll just go around making promises, right? There's two types of people. There'll be some people who, if they can't do something, they'll be very clear and they say, look, I can't do it. But there's some people who'll make promises and then they won't come around and do it. Now, there's a number of issues that come in between this, because, for example, sometimes you know half that you're not going to do it. You know that you're most likely not going to be able to do it, and you just say that you're going to do it to make the other person feel good. That's actually not good, because it eventually leads you to